The moment my mother's number appeared on my phone screen, I knew my carefully constructed world was about to shatter. 20 years of silence, and she chose to call on the day of the Excellence in Industry Awards. Perfect timing, as always. I am Sylvia and have spent the last 2 decades building something from nothing. My office, located on the 32nd floor of Midtown Manhattan, is a daily reminder of how far I've come from that terrified 18-year-old, pregnant with twins and dumped by the one person who should have been by her side. "Miss Lawson, your speech is ready for review," said CLA, poking her head into the door of my office. Her usually cheerful expression faltered at the sight of my face. Too well. I turned my phone face down. "I'm just ignoring it, CLA. Nothing I can't handle. The event starts in 3 hours. Jonathan is already there overseeing the setup," CLA noted. "Oh, and your twins called. They're going to surprise you by coming to the ceremony." A smile broke my tension. I did not expect that. My unexpected blessings, now freshmen in college, weren't supposed to come tonight. Some excuse about midterms. Those little. Still, my phone vibrated again. "Same number. Answer it," CLA said. "I'll hold your calls for the next 15 minutes. After she left, I stared at the phone until it stopped vibrating. 3 missed calls. Then a text. "We need to talk. I'm in the lobby." My hand started to shake. The lobby? She was here. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the elevator, my heels clicking against the marble floors with military precision. The security guard nodded as I walked past, but I barely noticed, my mind racing through the possibilities. Why now? What could she possibly want? The lobby was packed with the usual afternoon crowd, but I saw her right away. Rosalind. I refused to call her mom. She looked exactly like I remembered, only with more expensive clothes and grayer hair. She was studying the building directory with that familiar entitled expression. "What are you doing here?" My voice came out firmer than I felt. She turned, a practiced smile spreading across her face. "Sylvia, darling, look at you. So successful." She moved to hug me, but I regressed 20 years. "Rosalind, 20 years of nothing, and now you show up unannounced. Can't a mother be proud of her daughter?" She looked around the hall. "Perhaps we could discuss this in a more private place? Your office, maybe." "There's nothing to discuss. I have an important event tonight." "Yes, the Excellence in Industry Awards. I read about that," she said, her smile turning calculating. "That's quite an accomplishment. Your company has grown from nothing. It's impressive." A shiver ran down my spine. She'd been watching me. "What do you want? Can't this wait until we're in a private place?" "No. Say what you came to say." She sighed dramatically. "Well, I've had some financial setbacks recently, and I thought, given your success, you might want to help the family." I laughed. "Family? You lost the right to call yourself that when you abandoned your teenage daughter, pregnant. I raised you for 18 years. I think that entitles me to some consideration. Besides," she said, hardening her voice, "I have documentation of my investments in your early years. It would be a shame if questions arose about the origins of your company's initial capital." My stomach turned. She was threatening me. Just today. I seethed, maintaining eye contact with her. "Please escort this woman out," I said to security. "You can't avoid this conversation forever, Sylvia," she called as 2 guards approached. "I'm staying at the Marriott. You have until tomorrow to reconsider." I watched them take her away, my perfectly planned day now in ruins. My phone vibrated again. A text message. "I just landed. Can't wait to surprise you tonight." The irony was not lost on me. A daughter eager to celebrate my success, while my mother arrived to extort me. I armed myself for battle. Back in my office, CLA was waiting, worry etched on her face. "So? Bad?" she asked. "Worse," I replied, sinking into my chair. "She wants money, and she's not above blackmail to get it. Should we call Jonathan? Postpone the ceremony?" I thought of my twins flying out to surprise me. The years I'd spent building this company. The sleepless nights. The sacrifices. And the girl who once desperately wanted her mother's approval. "No," I said, straightening my back. "She's not going to screw this up too. But CLA, first thing tomorrow, call our lawyers. If Rosalind wants a fight, she's going to learn how strong her daughter has become." The Excellence in Industry Awards ceremony should have been my moment of triumph. Instead, I kept scanning the crowd, half expecting Rosalind to materialize and create a scene. The twins noticed my distraction immediately. "Mom, you're doing that thing with your necklace again," Cora whispered. reaching out to still my fidgeting hands. We were sitting at the head table, waiting for the keynote speaker to finish. "I'm sorry, honey. I'm just nervous about the speech." The lie felt bitter on my tongue. I had promised myself I would never lie to my children. Ian leaned in from my other side. "Lying. Something's wrong. You've given dozens of speeches." His dark eyes, so much like mine, narrowed. "What are you not telling us?" Before I could respond, Jonathan appeared behind us. "Sylvia, we need to take care of a situation in the lobby." My stomach dropped. "She's here, right?" "Who's here?" Ian demanded. "Your grandmother," Jonathan replied, his usual diplomatic tone stealing them. They listened. They never did when it mattered. Ian and Cora followed me and Jonathan to the hotel lobby, where Rosalind was arguing with event security. "I have every right to watch my daughter receive her award," she was saying loudly, ensuring several guests could hear. She was making a scene. "Ma'am, let us handle this," whispered Cora. But I shook my head. "Rosalind," I called, keeping my voice even. "This is inappropriate." She turned, that familiar manipulative smile spreading across her face. "Honey, I couldn't miss your big night." Her eyes landed on the twins. "And these must be my grandchildren. How old they both look." They exchanged glances. Ian took a step forward, placing himself slightly in front of me. "We are nothing to you. You lost that right 20 years ago." Rosalind put a hand to her chest, playing for the growing audience. "I've made mistakes, yes, but I'm here to make them right. To be a part of this family again." Cora's laugh was cold. "You walked out on our mother when she was pregnant with twins at 18. There were circumstances you don't understand." "Oh, we understand perfectly." She interrupted. "Yen, Mom told us everything. You kicked her out because her pregnancy would embarrass you in front of your new husband's fancy friends. You changed your number, you moved away, you pretended like she didn't exist." Rosalind's facade cracked slightly. "That's not quite it." "And now," Cora continued, "now that she's successful, you show up wanting what? Money? Recognition? A relationship?" I raised her. I didn't interrupt her, finding my voice. "You didn't raise me. You controlled me. You manipulated me. And when I needed you the most, you abandoned me. The only thing you taught me was how not to be a mother." The hallway had fallen silent. Rosalind looked around, realizing her audience was not understanding. "I have rights. If I cut her off, dropping the act. "I invested in your future, paid for your education. Until I got pregnant. Then you dismissed me as a lost cause." I reminded her. "Of all I've accomplished, I did it despite you, not thanks to you." "We'll see." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "I have proof of my financial contributions. Maybe your investors would be interested." Yen snatched the envelope from her hands. "You mean this?" She started to tear it up into pieces. "I guess you'll need a better crowbar." "Security," yelled Jonathan. "Please get this woman out, and this time, make sure she doesn't come back." "You think you're better than me?" Rosalind's mask slipped completely as the guards approached. "I made you who you are." "No," Cora said firmly, taking my hand. "She made herself who she is, and she made us who we are. You're nothing to us." I watched as Rosalind's threats echoed through the hallway. The twins lingered close, their presence anchoring me. "Well," Jonathan said, breaking the tension, "I think they're about to announce the Excellence in Industry Award for Innovation in Technology. Come on." I looked at my kids, my real family, and felt a surge of emotion. "I need to rewrite my acceptance speech," I admitted. "I think I finally know what I want to say." "It's about time," he smiled, putting an arm around my shoulders. "But please, don't make us cry in public." "I make no promises," I replied, walking back to the ceremony with my head held high. Rosalind could have haunted me, but instead, she reminded me how far I'd come and who had been by my side along the way. The morning after the award ceremony, I found myself going through an old storage box I hadn't opened in years. The twins sat cross-legged on my office floor, sifting through faded photographs and paperwork. "Mom, is that you?" Cora held up a wrinkled Polaroid of a teenager in an oversized sweater, trying to hide a tiny pregnant belly. 18 and terrified, I confirmed, taking the picture. "That was taken the day before he kicked me out." Yen picked up a crumpled envelope. "What is this?" I didn't start, but he'd already pulled out the contents, a handful of bad checks and a handwritten note. "Don't contact me again. You made your choice." Yen's voice was shaking with anger. "She wrote this to you? When you were pregnant with us?" A knock on the door saved me from answering. Claire walked in, looking serious. Excuse me, sorry to interrupt, but Rosalind is in the building again. She somehow got past security using a visitor pass from another company. Of course she did, I murmured. Jonathan is entertaining her. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Kids, stay here. She's not going to get in, they said in unison. The walk to the conference room felt like marching into battle. Through the glass walls, I could see Rosalind sitting there, examining her manicure while Jonathan kept a safe distance. I'll take care of this, I said, opening the door. Rosalind's eyes went to the twins. Family reunion. How appropriate. What do you want? I stood with the twins by my side. To remind you of something you seem to have forgotten. She pulled out her phone, tapped it a couple of times, and slid it across the table. Do you remember this place? The picture showed a small medical clinic. My heart stopped. What's up with that? My voice sounded distant. That's where I took you for your first prenatal appointment. Where I paid the deposit for your medical care, she said, her smile turning predatory. Before you decided to ruin it all by keeping them. You loved me. I couldn't finish the sentence. I gave you options, Rosalind said. Very expensive options. Options that would have preserved your future. Instead, you chose this. She gestured vaguely toward the twins. Yin stepped forward, but Cora grabbed his arm. Let me finish digging his grave, he whispered. I have receipts, Rosalind continued. Proof of every penny I invested in you. By my calculations, with interest, you owe me close to $500,000. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. That's what this is about. Money. It's about what's fair. I loved you. I sacrificed everything for you. I didn't interrupt her. You sacrificed me for everything else. Your reputation. Your new marriage. Your social standing. I pulled out my phone. And since we're talking about receipts, I played the recording of last night's confrontation in the hotel lobby. Her threats. Her admission of attempted blackmail. Extortion is still illegal last time I checked, Jonathan added softly. Rosalind paled. You recorded me. I record every possible threat to my company's security, I replied. Standard procedure. No, you wouldn't dare use that against your mother. Look at me. I leaned forward. This is what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to lock yourself out. If you ever try to contact me or my kids again, this recording is going to every media outlet in town. You can't. I can. And I will. And just to be clear, I pulled out my checkbook, quickly wrote, and threw it at her. Here's $500,000. Consider every imaginary debt paid. We're done. She looked at the check, then at me. This doesn't change anything. I'm still your mother. No, said Cora in a loud voice. You're just the woman that gave birth to her. There's a difference. Security is waiting outside, Jonathan added, opening the door. Rosalind stood up, grabbing the check. You'll regret this, Sylvia. The truth about your success, about where you came from, is right here. I interrupted her, wrapping my arms around my twins. Everything I am, everything I've built, came from choosing them, from proving you wrong. So thank you, Rosalind. Thank you for showing me exactly the kind of mother I never wanted to be. After she was gone, the twins hugged me tight. That was great, Mom, whispered Cora. Yes, Yin nodded. But why didn't you use this advantage sooner? I looked at the file in my hands, 20 years of insurance against this very moment. Because sometimes, the best revenge is waiting for your enemy to destroy themselves. We have a problem, Jonathan announced, storming into my office 3 days later. He left a stack of papers on my desk. Your mother has been busy. I flipped through the documents, my stomach tightening. She's meeting with Marcus Reynolds, our biggest competitor. It isn't just a meeting. Look at the last page. The final document showed a series of email exchanges. My hand began to shake as I read them. She claims that she provided the seed money for my company. That's impossible. I stood up so fast my chair rolled against the wall. She's fabricated a pretty convincing paper trail, he said grimly. Reynolds is considering using this information for a hostile takeover attempt. Claire appeared in the doorway. Sylvia, the twins are here, and you need to see this. Yin and Cora ran in, Yin grabbing his laptop. Mom has gone public. He turned the screen towards me, displaying a business news website. The headline made my blood boil. Tech CEO success story. Mom claims ownership rights to company. That's not even the worst part, Cora added, scrolling down. He's giving interviews about how he sacrificed everything to support your startup career. He's trying to force your hand, I said, pacing back and forth. Make me pay him to shut up. Actually, said a familiar voice from the door. I'm trying to get back what's mine. He was standing there, looking impeccable in an expensive suit. Behind her, Marcus Reynolds was grinning like a shark that had just detected blood in the water. This is private property. Jonathan stepped forward. Not for long, Reynolds replied softly. Once these ownership documents are verified. They're forgeries, I snapped. Rosalind pulled out a yellowed envelope. Do you remember this, honey? The college fund I set up for you. The one you emptied to start your precious company. My heart stopped. The college fund. The only thing I had tried to forget. That money was mine, I said carefully. You gave it to me on my 18th birthday. She replied, under duress. When you threatened to reveal certain family secrets to your stepfather. The twins looked at me questioningly. I'd never told them this part of the story. You want to talk about secrets, Rosalind? I walked over. Like, why did you create that fund? Where did that money come from? Her smile faltered slightly. Mom. Cora touched my arm. What's going on? Her grandmother didn't set up that college fund out of motherly love, I said without looking away from Rosalind. She set it up to hide money from her first divorce, money she embezzled from her ex-husband's company. Reynolds' shark smile disappeared. Is this true? Of course not, Rosalind laughed, but it sounded hollow. She's desperate, I said. I have proof. Every transaction, every transfer. I found the papers when I was cleaning out her house after she kicked me out. That's why she gave me the money so easily, because she knew I could prove where it came from. You're bluffing, she whispered. I walked over to my desk, pulled a thick file out of the bottom drawer, and put it all away. I've been waiting 20 years for you to try something like this. Reynolds walked away from Rosalind. I think we're done here. Marcus, wait. She walked over to him, but he was already heading for the door. You didn't think I'd be prepared? I asked quietly. You taught me well. Always remember, keep the upper hand. Always have a plan B. This isn't over, she hissed. Actually, objected Jonathan, it is. Our lawyers, they're filing a defamation suit right now. Those false statements you made to the press are going to cost you. You can't prove they're false. Yes, we can, he said. We talked. We found your old accountant. He's very talkative these days, especially since his retirement. Rosalind's serene facade completely cracked. Security is going up, Claire announced from the doorway. Should I have Miss Lawson escorted out, or would she rather leave with her dignity intact? For a moment, Rosalind stood there, looking older and smaller than I'd ever seen her. Then she straightened her back, adjusted her designer handbag, and turned to leave. You're going to regret this, she said over her shoulder. I didn't answer. I won, but I think she will. After she left, the twins hugged me tight. That was great, Mom, Cora whispered. Yes, nodded Yin. Okay, but why didn't you use this advantage before? I looked at the file in my hands. Years of insurance against this very moment. Because sometimes, the best revenge is to wait. As we discussed our counterattack, I smiled, feeling more energized than I had in days. Oh yeah, I said. Cora stormed into my home office, laptop in hand, Yin right behind her. You won't believe what we found. I looked up from the legal documents I had been going through. It was Saturday morning, but we had all been working around the clock since Rosalind's last attack. Remember you said Rosalind remarried right after she kicked you out? Yin pulled up a chair. Well, we did some research on her new family. I put the papers aside, intrigued by their enthusiasm. She's done this before. Cora turned her laptop towards me. 3 times, the screen showed a series of news articles spanning the last 20 years, each with Rosalind under slightly different names, involved in various financial disputes. Look at the pattern, Yin pointed out. She marries rich men, usually with grown children, then somehow gains control of the family assets. And suddenly, there's a massive family breakup. Her current husband, Cora added, is Richard Esterlin. My eyes went wide. The property developer? And guess who's been quietly selling off his assets without his knowledge? Yin smiled. A knock at the door interrupted us. Jonathan walked in, looking unusually animated. You have to see this, he said, turning on the TV in my office. The news channel showed Richard Esterlin himself standing outside his office building, surrounded by reporters. Allegations of unauthorized property sales and funds mismanagement flashed across the screen. I've filed for divorce and am fully cooperating with the investigation, he declared. Holy, I whispered. That's not all, Jonathan said. The children. Richard's contacted our attorneys. They want to talk. Within hours, My living room had become a makeshift war room. Richard's 3 adult children sat across from us, sharing stories that felt eerily familiar. He isolated our father, explained Sarah, the oldest. Convinced him we were after his money. Sounds familiar, I muttered. Then she started managing his finances, added Michael, the middle child. Said she was protecting the family legacy. But you caught her. Thanks to you. Lisa, the youngest, smiled. As soon as we saw the news about her claims against his company, we started digging and found the pattern you exposed. We are building a class action lawsuit. Other families have come forward, Sarah said. Would you be willing to testify? Before I could answer, my phone vibrated. A text from Rosalind. We need to talk. One last chance to fix this. She's desperate, Yin said, reading over my shoulder. Okay, Cora said firmly. Let's get this over with, I replied. Marriott. 1 hour. Come alone. The hotel lobby was quiet when I arrived. I had insisted on going alone, even though I knew Jonathan had people watching. Rosalind was sitting in the corner, looking less polished than usual. I guess you've seen the news, I said, sitting across from her. You turned Richard against me, she said bitterly. You ruined everything I built up. How? By stopping you from ruining me. I leaned forward. I gotta know. Some of this, was it real? Did you ever care about anyone besides yourself? Of course I did, she snapped. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing but lessons in manipulation. I cut her off. And now those lessons are coming back to haunt you. What do you want? She asked tiredly. I want you to disappear. Sign a confession admitting your claims about my company were false. Give back everything you stole from Richard. And never contact me or my kids again. She scoffed. Or what? I pulled out my phone and showed her the evidence we had gathered. Or I make sure every law enforcement agency in the country knows about your pattern of fraud. Every media outlet gets your story. Every family you've destroyed gets their justice. She looked at the phone, then at me. You rate me so much. That's the thing, Rosalind. I don't hate you at all. I pity you. You could have had a real family, real relationships. Instead, you chose schemes and manipulation. And now, you're alone. I can't help but change, she whispered. I stood up. You can't. But you can face the consequences of your choices. The papers will be delivered tomorrow. Sign them, or face the consequences. As I walked away, she yelled after me. I loved you, you know. In my way. I turned back one last time. Your way wasn't love, Rosalind. It was control. And now, you've lost both. Outside, the twins were waiting in the car, despite my instructions to stay home. And, they asked in unison. Now we wait, I said, sliding into the back seat. But something tells me she'll sign. And then, Cora asked. I looked at my kids, my real family, and smiled. Then we're back to living our best lives. 'Cause that's the greatest revenge of all. She's not signing, CLA announced, bursting into the conference room where we were going over quarterly reports. And it's worse than we thought. Jonathan pulled up a news website on the projector. My stomach turned as I read the headline. Tech CEO's dark past revealed. Family secrets go nuclear. Yin read over my shoulder. Look at these accusations. The article detailed alleged evidence of tax fraud, claiming I had used illegal means to start my company. Worse still, it included personal attacks about my pregnancy, suggesting I had manipulated and blackmailed my way through those early years. She's trying to destroy everything, I whispered. Mom, Cora touched my arm. There's something else you should see. She pulled up a social media post that Rosalind had made. Old photos of me as a teenager, including some from when I was pregnant. The caption read, A mother's sacrifice, the truth about my daughter's rise to power. The comments were brutal. People were already asking for investigations into my company. Your stock is falling, Jonathan said quietly. Investors are getting nervous. My phone rang. Richard Esterlin's daughter, Sarah. I put it on speaker. Turn on channel 7, she said without preamble. CLA grabbed the remote. There was Rosalind, sitting in a studio, tears streaming down her face. As a mother, I just wanted to protect her, she said. But the things she did, the way she manipulated people, I can't keep quiet anymore. That manipulator, I started. Wait, I raised my hand. Look behind her. In the background of the shot, barely visible, was Marcus Reynolds. He was watching the interview with a satisfied smile. They're working together, Cora noticed. Jonathan clenched his jaw. Reynolds is backing her move. Of course, I said, everything falling into place. She wants my company. She wants revenge. Perfect partnership. What do we do? Cora asked. I stood up, smoothing out my blazer. Whatever you can find about Reynolds' recent business dealings. The children. We're already on it. Yin interrupted, typing furiously on his laptop. I found something interesting about RE's recent acquisitions. They all follow a similar pattern to Rosalind's schemes. And look at this, Cora added, pulling out another document. The timing of their meetings coincides with several suspicious property transfers. My phone vibrated again. A text from Rosalind. Ready to negotiate? Cora looked worried. What's our play here? I smiled, feeling oddly calm. We give them exactly what they want, a public showdown. The next morning, I walked into the same studio where Rosalind had given her tearful performance. She was already there, along with Reynolds, both looking smug. Honey, Rosalind said sweetly as the makeup artists were getting us ready to go on air. Last chance to fix this. Funny, I replied. I was about to say the same thing. The red light came on. The host introduced us, recapping the controversy. Rosalind launched into her well-rehearsed story about my alleged misdeeds. And what do you say to these accusations? The host asked. I pulled out my phone. I say, let's listen to something interesting. I played an audio recording. Reynolds' voice came through. Once we take over his company, you'll get your share. Just stick to the story, Rosalind. What about illegal transfers of property? If they come to light, Reynolds won't trust me. This plan is foolproof. The studio stayed in silence. Reynolds' face turned purple. Rosalind's makeup couldn't hide her sudden pallor. That recording, the host stuttered, is real, I confirmed. As real as the documentation I just sent to the SEC about Mr. Rain's recent business practices, I said calmly. And as real as the evidence of my mother's involvement in multiple fraud schemes in 3 states. You recorded us? Reynolds snapped. I didn't smile. You recorded yourselves. My tech company specializes in cybersecurity, remember? Your phones have been compromised, recording your conversations for weeks. Rosalind stood up, shaking. You can't. Security is waiting outside, I interrupted her, along with some very interested FBI agents. Would you rather go out, or should they come in themselves? The host was frantically motioning to the producer, but I wasn't done. Oh, and Mom, those pictures you posted? Thank you. They showed everyone exactly what I overcame to build my success. Every comment attacking me only proved how strong I had to be. As security led them away, the host turned to me. I would like to make a statement. I looked straight into the camera. Success is not about who gives you opportunities. It's about what you do with the challenges life and family throw at you. The real family supports you. They don't try to bring you down for profit. The light went out. Cora came running in with updates on the stock price, which was already recovering. But all I could think about was my twins watching from home, watching their mother finally closing this chapter of her life. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters when I got to the hearing. It had been 3 weeks since the showdown in the television studio, and now it was time to face the consequences. All of us. Miss Lawson, reporters were shouting, some commenting about their mother's plea deal. I kept walking, Jonathan and the twins beside me. Inside, the courtroom was already packed. Richard Esterlin and his sons were sitting in the front row, nodding as we passed. Rosalind and Reynolds were already there, both looking considerably less polished in their prison jumpsuits. All rise, the bailiff yelled. The judge walked in, and the proceedings began. I listened as the prosecutor presented the charges: fraud, racketeering, conspiracy, securities violations. The evidence we had gathered had opened a Pandora's box of crimes spanning decades. The defendants have agreed to plead guilty to all charges, the prosecutor announced, in exchange for their cooperation in the ongoing investigations. Rosalind turned around, her eyes meeting mine. For the first time, I saw something real in them: fear. Before accepting these guilty pleas, the judge said, I understand that the primary victim would like to make a statement. I stood up, smoothing down my dress. I am sorry, I said. But today, I am not here to talk about the past. I am here to talk about justice, not only for myself, but for every family that these defendants have destroyed with their schemes. I turned to look at them directly. Mr. Reynolds thought that he could use my mother's bitterness against me. Instead, he exposed his criminal empire. And Mom, Rosalind, you thought you could destroy what I built, but you forgot something important. And what is that? Rosalind asked, her voice barely audible. You taught me to keep receipts, I smiled. Every manipulation, every scheme, I learned by watching you. The difference is that I use those lessons to protect myself and others, not to destroy them. The judge leaned forward. What do you ask for in terms of sentencing? The maximum allowed, I said firmly. Not for vengeance, but for protection. These defendants have shown they will not stop unless forced. They have hurt too many families, destroyed too many lives. Reynolds' attorney jumped up. Your Honor, my client. Save yourself, the judge interrupted him. I have reviewed the evidence. The plea agreement stands, with maximum sentences. He turned to Rosalind and Reynolds. You both will have plenty of time to reflect on your decisions. As the bailiffs led them away, Rosalind yelled, Sylvia, please. Goodbye, Mom, I said quietly. I hope you find peace. Outside, the reporters were waiting again. This time I paused. Miss Lawson, how do you feel about the sentencing? I felt Cora come up beside me. Today, it's not about feelings, I replied. It's about accountability, about proving that success built on the destruction of others will eventually crumble. And what about your mother? Will you ever forgive her? I paused, considering. Forgiveness is not about excusing actions. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger. I looked at the cameras. So yes, I forgive you. For my good, not for yours. Mom, whispered Cora. Mira, Richard Sterling, and his children approached. Sarah stepped forward first. Thank you, she said simply. For helping us expose the truth, we should thank you, I replied. Your bravery in coming forward made this possible. Richard cleared his throat. We are organizing a support group for families affected by similar situations. Would you consider speaking at our first meeting? I looked at my twins. I saw them nodding encouragingly. I would feel honored. Later that night, we sat in my living room, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and case files we no longer needed. Then Jonathan said, raising his glass, what's next for the unstoppable Lawson family? Sleep, Ian groaned, making us laugh. Actually, I said, pulling out my laptop, I've been thinking. We've learned a lot about how vulnerable families can be to manipulation and fraud. Maybe it's time to use that knowledge. What do you mean? Cora asked. I'm thinking about creating a foundation, something to help protect families, provide resources, legal support. Turn all this pain into something positive. The Phoenix Foundation, suggested Cora, because you rose from the ashes of what he did to you. We rose. I corrected, hugging them both. And we're going to help others rise too. As my family discussed plans for the foundation, I realized something profound. Rosalind had tried to write my story as a tragedy. Instead, she had helped create a legacy of strength, resilience, and hope. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. The Phoenix Foundation's inaugural event filled the hotel ballroom with survivors and their families. As I watched Sarah Esterlin conclude her powerful speech on recovering from family fraud, my phone vibrated with a call from a family prison number. I declined the call, as I had every week since the sentencing. It keeps calling? Cora asked, adjusting the foundation banner behind the podium. Every Wednesday at 6, I answered. Like clockwork. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan announced from the stage, please welcome our founder, Sylvia. The applause felt different this time. Not the polite corporate recognition I was used to, but something warmer, more personal. These people understood my journey because they had lived their versions of it. When my mother reappeared, I began, for the first time in my life. I thought she was coming to destroy everything I had built. Instead, she showed me what needed to be built. The audience leaned forward, many nodding in recognition. We all have stories of betrayal by family members who chose greed over love. But those stories don't define us. What defines us is what we choose to do with our pain. A movement in the back of the room caught my attention. Richard Sterling had arrived with his youngest daughter, Lisa. They were supporting an elderly woman I recognized from the case files, another of Reynolds' victims. The Phoenix Foundation is not just about preventing fraud, I continued. It's about redefining family. Sometimes, family is who we choose, who supports us when biological ties fail. Ian appeared at the side of the stage, giving me a thumbs up. He had just finished setting up our new online support network, connecting survivors across the country. Today, we announce our legal defense fund, I said firmly. No one should face these battles alone. No one should have to choose between justice and bankruptcy. The doors opened again. Marcus Reynolds' ex-wife walked in with her children, all standing in quiet solidarity as Phoenix Foundation supporters. But most importantly, I said, my voice growing stronger, we're here to remind everyone that your worth is not determined by those who failed you. It's determined by how you get back up, how you rebuild, and how you help others do the same. After the speech, during the reception, Cora ran up to me with her tablet. You need to see this. It was a news article. Rosalind Lawson tries to reform in prison. Personal transformation is teaching other inmates to recognize patterns of manipulation, Cora explained. The prison psychologist says she's making progress. I'm happy for her, I said seriously. But that chapter of my life is closed. Mom, Cora yelled. The Esterlin brothers want to discuss expanding the foundation's reach. The next hour flew by in a whirlwind of conversation, plans, and connections. People shared their stories, their triumphs, their ongoing struggles, each one reinforcing why we had created the foundation. As the event drew to a close, Jonathan joined me at a quiet table in the corner. What a great turnout, he said, slipping me a coffee. But you haven't checked your phone in hours. I took it out, 7 missed calls from the prison. It's persistent, he noted. It always was. I looked at the notification. Maybe that's what made it so dangerous. Then, I deleted the notifications. Now, it's just someone who taught me what not to be. Mom. The twins approached, followed by a group of young adults, all children of fraud victims. We want to start a youth outreach program, Cora said, for helping children spot the warning signs early. Looking at them, my children, who had grown into such compassionate and strong individuals, I felt a surge of pride. You know what the best revenge is? I asked Jonathan. He gestured toward the room full of healing families, toward my twins leading their peer support initiative, toward the wall displaying our foundation's mission statement, transforming pain into power. I think you figured it out, he smiled. The last guests were leaving when Claire brought one last message, a letter from prison. Unlike the others, I opened this one. Sylvia, I saw the announcement of your foundation on television. For the first time, I saw you. I saw you not as one of my ambitions or a target of my resentment, but as the extraordinary woman you've become, despite me. No thanks to me. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that you've succeeded in the one arena I've always failed. You've created something that helps people instead of harming them. Don't answer. Don't come visit. I just want you to know that at least one good thing came out of my failures. They helped make you everything I never could. I folded the letter and put it in my purse, then joined my real family, my children, my friends, the members of my foundation, as they planned the next chapter in our shared story. Not a story of revenge or resentment, but one of resurrection. Rising from the ashes, stronger, wiser, and ready to light the way for others. Because that's what happens with phoenixes. They don't just rise. They soar.